What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. Obviously, it's an emergency video because we just had a massive trade go down on the day that Patrick Allvin was given an extension as general manager of the Vancouver Canucks on the goddamn eve of All-Star Weekend. We had a banger of a trade go down. The Canucks acquired Elias Lindholm for Andrei Kuzmenko, Hunter Brustevich, Yoni Yermo, 2024 first-round pick, and a conditional 2024 fourth-round pick. It had been talked about for weeks at this point that the Vancouver Canucks were in the market for that second-line center position. They had obviously fortified their defense core last year with the Philip Hronek trade, and as well as signing guys like Ian Cole and Carson Soucy. So when looking at it with this team, they lacked that second-line center, assuming that they were going to maybe run with the Lotto line. If they wanted to run the Lotto line down the line, shift Pettersson over to wing, and getting a guy like Elias Lindholm is obviously big. Yes, he is having a bit of a down year. This is really just because his finishing has tanked. He only has 9 goals in, I believe, 43 games. When looking at Elias Lindholm, I think that he's personally been miscast as this number one center on the Calgary Flames. And once he didn't have Johnny Gaudreau and Matthew Tkachuk, obviously in that 2022 season, were legitimate top 5 wingers in the entire NHL, and in prior years were very elite. Once he didn't have those guys, his numbers kind of cratered. He had 42 goals, 40 assists in that 2022 season, was a Selke runner-up. I don't think that he should have been a Selke runner-up, but he was fantastic that year because he had those 2 fantastic players and he put up very good results. Then goes down to 22 goals, 42 assists, 64 points once they left. So still very, very low-end first-line center, but no longer elite first line center on in terms of like an actual contender. And this year it has obviously gone majorly downhill, not even on pace for 60 points, not even on pace for 20 goddamn goals. When looking at Lindholm, again, I talk about being miscast. This guy is a great second line center. I think on the Vancouver Canucks, just not having to focus on offense as much, just be a responsible two-way guy going up against the other teams, some of the other teams' top end offensive players. I think that he can be that fantastic two-way center. Towards the end in Calgary, when he didn't have the help around him and he didn't have the overall depth, he kind of got exposed, honestly. And when looking at the Vancouver Canucks on the whole, they need to be going all in. They definitely need to be going all in with the team that they have right now. When looking at the PDO that they have, obviously they've been one of the most lucky teams in the NHL. They are getting fantastic goaltending. They're shooting it fantastic. Not saying that I don't think the Vancouver Canucks are going to be a playoff team next year, but this is probably going to be their best regular season. So you need to be going all out. And when you look at the cap structure of this team, who's going to be a restricted free agent this summer? Elias Pettersson. So you're not going to have a better opportunity, and Quinn Hughes is up in like 2 or 3 off seasons. So with this core right now, you need to be balls to the wall. Most of your core is between the ages of 24 to 30 at this point. This is not your goal. This is probably your golden opportunity in terms of regular season success. Obviously, you can get lucky in the playoffs, but we don't know if this Vancouver Canucks team is going to be as good over the next 3 to 4 years. So when looking at it, you got to be all in. And when looking at this trade, they did dump an Andrei Kuzmenko, who next year is making $5.5 million. I feel like that's getting overlooked in this deal. They're dumping a deal that probably would have cost them a second-round pick just to get out of. Andrei Kuzmenko is obviously not playing that good. And you have Pettersson, you have Dakota Joshua, and you have Teddy Bluger, all free agents this summer. So that deal, this trade dumping of Kuzmenko also helps with that cap situation, even if you don't end up signing an Elias Lindholm. So when looking at it, I think Lindholm really fortifies their top 6 and just overall forward depth. They can run that arguably probably the best line in all of hockey in terms of that Lotto line without losing basically all of their depth scoring. So I really like the move for the Vancouver Canucks. Is it a pretty steep price for a potential rental? Yes, but this isn't a team that's battling for a playoff spot going out and trading their first round pick. The Vancouver Canucks are going to be in the playoffs. Elias Lindholm obviously has a decent amount of playoff experience, and he is that two-way player that you want on your playoff team. You look back to a Colorado Avalanche having a guy like Nazem Kadri as their second line center on their cup run. Obviously, Vegas was fantastic down the middle. They had a fantastic 4 center lineup that they ran with. So when looking at it, fortifying that middle of the ice, if they are going to throw Pettersson on the wing, I think this is a very good move for the Vancouver Canucks. When looking at it for the Calgary Flames, Andrei Kuzmenko, definitely not having the best season this year. His finishing has really fallen off. He went from being one of the best finishers in the entire NHL. A lot of it was luck. A lot of it was some tap-ins. But he shot 27%. Obviously, that was not sustainable. 39 goals last year, but he has really fallen off. 8 goals, 13 assists for 21 points. Maybe the Canucks, the Flames rather. The Flames can rehabilitate him next year, kind of what they did with Sharangovich. Sharangovich wasn't that bad and he was a lot younger, but do that with do that with Kuzmenko and maybe flip him next year at half retained for a second or third round pick. It's just another guy to fill out the roster because the Flames do still want to be like somewhat competitive just to fill up the building. So Kuzmenko probably going to be on the team next year as well and be an okay piece. But obviously the main piece of this trade for the Calgary Flames is Hunter Brustevich in that first round pick. Obviously we don't know what the first round pick is going to be. But obviously when looking at Hunter Brustevich, he has 69 points in 47 OHL games. This is his hockey prospecting page, which basically uses other leagues' point totals for prospects and makes the NHL equivalent of that. And based on that, projects their star probability and NHL probability. So Brustevich has been getting better every single year at the U.S. developmental program in the OHL. He had a solid OHL draft year, ended up falling to the third round. A lot of people had him in like the mid-second round, so he was kind of a steal for the Vancouver Canucks to begin with. But when looking at Brustevich, the Flames kind of lacked an elite defenseman prospect. They had guys like Etienne Morin and Jeremy Poirier. I'm sorry if I'm botching those names. Those names look French. But those guys were low-end defenseman prospects. Those guys were not elite defenseman prospects. I think Brustevich immediately becomes their number one defenseman prospect. And when looking at the Calgary Flames, they're kind of loaded and not loaded, but they have a very good forward young core in terms of guys like Connor Zary, Coronado, Peltier, and as well as Sam Hanzik. So when looking at that, they needed another defenseman prospect to bring into the mix. And as for that 2024 first round pick, it's probably not going to be high. I think the Vancouver Canucks definitely are going to finish top 5 in the NHL. So at best, that pick's going to be 23rd overall, I believe, 23rd, 24th. So it's not like they're getting, like in the Bo Horvat trade, it ended up being 17th overall, or the Jacob Chikrin trade, it ended up being like 12th overall. So it's not going to be an extremely high first round pick. But when you're talking about the Calgary Flames, you are just trying to stack assets at this point. And I'm just very happy that they opted for this kind of return of, yes, one bad contract, but they probably got more in the deal because they took on that bad contract. But taking on an older bad contract as well as a first round pick in assets instead of like a Sharangovich. Although Sharangovich is playing good. I'm not trying to say he's not playing good, but Sharangovich, a 25-year-old that's not part of your long-term plans, and a third round pick that they did with Toffoli. I'm very happy that they did this more move of a rebuilding team by taking on a bad contract in order to get even more assets. And going forward, Hanifin, Tanev, also pending unrestricted free agents. I think there's a serious case that Noah Hanifin could get more than Elias Lindholm. It's going to be dependent on how desperate teams are in terms of the trade market that has been set. Maybe nobody has the appetite to make a massive move for a Noah Hanifin. I think the trade package could resemble that of a Hampus Lindholm back in 2021. He went for a first round pick in 2 seconds. I think he's definitely going to get at least a first and a third at the bare minimum, a first and a B prospect. When looking at a guy like Noah Hanifin, that is probably a top 60 defenseman in the entire NHL, in my opinion. Chris Tanev, maybe you get a first. He's definitely getting up there in age. He's still elite defensively. Not sure if that's a lock to get a first round pick, but it's definitely going to be 2 seconds or a second in a very good prospect. But the Flames are definitely heading in the right direction with this deal. I have been critical of the Flames rebuild in terms of them opting for more retool than say a rebuild. But it seems like with this deal, they are definitely going to trade Tanev, definitely going to trade Hanifin most likely. So in looking at it, I'm just happy that the Flames are entering this retool. And in terms of this year, maybe getting a very high pick as well as getting that 23rd, 24th, 25th overall. Their prospect pool is shaping up actually to be pretty solid. So let me know in the comments, what do you think about this trade? Who would you grade it for? I gave the Flames an A. I initially gave the Canucks an A-. That might be down to a B+ because it is a decent amount, and Lindholm hasn't been playing the best lately. So right now, the way it stands, I would go with the Flames for an A, Canucks for a B+. But I want to hear from you guys, and I'll be seeing you in the next one.